we could buy in bulk so that we could make a little bit more on the concessions. It's been brought up this morning about the different fees and things, and it really can't be afforded on the south side at all. We have registration to start the year and the uniform cost. And we make a decision at the beginning of that year, of that registration period, to not turn away any kids and to go out into the community and raise funds to try to have these kids play ball. And I personally come out of my pocket to pay for kids to play. My first year, I didn't quite understand the concept of how registration and the uniforms and things. I had this crazy notion of trying to get the kids to play for half of what they had paid to play for in the past. And I ended up spending a great deal of money out of my pocket the first year. The registration covers registration. There are fees you're sent off to Little League. Some of that money can be used for umpires. The uniform cost is the uniform cost. No extra charge on that. The concessions are used to try and offset what needs to be taken care of as far as umpires are paid usually weekly. We've had the city and city manager knows firsthand, and the mayor pro tem knows firsthand also, that the city comes out to take care of all of the fields on the south side. We have no extra funds to do anything. So we are totally dependent on the city to keep the fields up. They drag the fields daily during the week. They come in on Fridays and drag for the weekend, and then we do the best we can to get through the weekend. Richard and others have sent down Quick Dry in the past to try to help us get certain games when it rains just a little bit. If you have the Quick Dry, you put it down, spread it out, fields are ready, in an hour or so to play on. We didn't have that, so we had some cancellations from time to time. Our seasons usually lasted 2 weeks longer. I think Northern would finish right before the Memorial Day break. We would play into June because we wanted to keep the kids busy and out of trouble. It's such a passion, such a passion. It's hard to explain if you hadn't been there that $10 is not affordable. $5 is not affordable. I had one parent that had 3 kids that were adopted that she was raising, and they had that issue one year, and they wanted to pull one child from playing because of money. So we went in and bought uniforms, paid for everything, and took care of that. It's something, like David said, it makes me emotional at times. We've had, probably since that time period, a few kids to get college degrees. We've had a couple of kids drafted. We had one kid last year that was drafted by the Braves. He's in AA ball, I think, this year. But it makes a difference as far as crime prevention, as far as keeping them active, keeping them off the street. These people have the information. They know exactly what goes on. They're in the trenches. And you would be surprised at the latchkey kids that jump on a bicycle and ride down to the park and say, I want to play baseball, I want to play soccer, I would love to participate. Where are your parents? At work. I'll get them here as soon as I can, but I'd really like to play. So they are faced with the same thing I was faced with, trying to get these kids in and playing, and believe it or not, that same kid on the bicycle, backpack, uniform, never missed a game. Never missed a game. The parents came when they could be there because they were single parents trying to raise their family. So these kids had a lot of responsibilities at the ages of 9, 10, 11, trying to attend school. We were trying to get tutors to get them through and everything. So I'll cut it at this point by saying District 8 has always had meetings, and Northern, American, and Pioneer have always opened up to us to help on the south side. Sally, Eastern, and National on the south side. To my understanding this year, Richard and others have worked with them to try to consolidate in order to save National Little League. National Little League was down to 3 teams when I left in 2009. And the only reason I left was to be right here where I am now. I left Little League Baseball to run for council. And that's the only thing that took me off the field. But they have, my understanding is, tried to consolidate to save everybody. We also we played in the past with Chattahoochee and Harris County. So in order for Northern American and Pioneer have so many teams that they play within their leagues all year long, within their complex. Sally, Eastern, and National and Chattahoochee had to arrange games between the 4 of us in order for all of us to survive through the Little League season to get down to city playoffs, all-stars, and these things. So, you know, whatever we do, let's find a better way, because the fees will basically all but eliminate most of the south side if it's increased. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to make a couple more points in discussing this. The Columbus Youth Football couldn't be here today, but they told me that they have personally expended about $17,000 at the Britt David Park football field. They went in and crowned the field so the drainage would be better. Now, they also told me that since that time, one of the high schools, I believe, teams have been playing on that field and have disrupted some of that investment that they've made in that. Also, as far as, like Councilor Huff said, Northern Little League took a net, I believe it was, Mr. Bryant, took a batting cage net to one of the, was it Sally?
It was
National League, donated it to them, but could not get city staff to help install the net for them to be able to have batting practice there. But I just wanted you to understand the type of give. I mean, there's equipment donated from the northern teams to Sally, National, and Eastern. There are uniforms donated. They do a lot of things that go unrecognized and not looking for any accolades for it. They've been doing it when I was and Councilor Henderson were at Pioneer Little League. We've been doing it that long. It was instilled in the operation, and we carried it forward when we were there. And I believe Mr. Miles mentioned that there was a lawnmower that they wanted to buy at soccer to give to the city to allow the city to use that lawnmower to maintain the fields. But the response was, well, we can't guarantee that that lawnmower would only be used at soccer, that we would take it and utilize it at other areas. Well, they were going to buy the $15,000 lawnmower, and they decided to pull back on that because they wanted it dedicated to the soccer complex. So those are there's just thousands and thousands of dollars that are spent maintaining the field. I would venture, and I'll do my best to gather the numbers and share it with council at a later date during this budget discussion, but I would venture to say the investment by the leagues, by baseball, soccer, and football, far exceed annually the $60,000 that the city is looking for out of these unnecessary fees, in my opinion. I know Seth Brown's here. He was past president, I believe, in youth football. So he can certainly, if you'd like to say anything, Seth, I'm sure the council would welcome it. But
I just wanted to make one quick correction. It was River City Youth Football instead of Columbus Youth Football.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't want my board to get upset with me. We, on average, spend about $20,000 a year on the facilities, but we're a blessed organization. Councilor Allen and I have talked several times. My fear is not that River City will suffer, it's that the South Side leagues that we work with a lot are the ones that will suffer. My parents can handle this amount. It would be easy. And we scholarship about 20 kids a year. We want to do more, but people are very hesitant to come forward and ask for a scholarship. They get embarrassed by it, and so they don't even ask. I pay for 2 or 3 kids a year myself. Our fees are $150 to play. Of that, about $60 goes toward uniform, but unlike a lot of other sports, and I know baseball can be expensive, but football, my kid, about every season, it's about $500 because he has to get a new helmet every year because you don't want to use a helmet year after year after year. Use one time and get rid of it. Smart parents do. I'm not trying to be ugly, I'm just saying that's a high risk. Shoulder pads are anywhere from $50 to $150, and that my son now is an adult of shoulder pads, and they're $250. So it's more expensive as they get older. So every season, like I said, it's about $500. So we can afford this, but I'm afraid that, like I said, the south side and east side Columbus will be affected dramatically by it. And our fields are used by, like Councilor Harris said, Columbus High uses our field for lacrosse and destroys it every year. CSU club team plays football on our field. It's not our field, but the field that we maintain. And also, we have other activities there too, which we're fine to share it. And Carson and I talk all the time. They do maintain as far as cutting and stuff, but we line it and we also refurbish it every year. As Councilor Allen said, the past 2 years we've spent over $32,000 in recrowning and resodding the field. So.
And in addition to that, I think the donation of equipment to the South Columbus Field or the other leagues
We
that need.
do that. We don't donate helmets because there's an insurance risk there. That's just something our attorneys have told us not to do. But shoulder pads. We do a shoe swap and pant swap and all kinds of stuff. Basically, if you need it, you just come up and grab it and take it. We don't ask any questions. We just don't do helmets anymore because of the liability risk.
And just to be clear, there is a River City football, which
Yes,
is
sir.
on the list, and a Columbus Youth football.
Yes, sir. They're two
They're
separate
Two different
organizations.
leagues of football. So
River
that-
City
that's
has
what-
no boundaries, whereas
Right.
Columbus Youth Football has sectors of the city where if you live in this sector, you play for this team. If you live in whereas River City is all encompassing. It's just everybody.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time coming. Mr. Mills, Mr. Bryant, Ms. Roper, thank you so much. And Seth, thank you for coming up and saying.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. All right. Mr. City Manager, we're going to turn it over to your agenda. I'm going to ask if our folks with IT can come over. My screen is down, so I can't call the vote. So either that has to be brought up, or somebody needs to bring me a paper agenda, if y'all will, please. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And Councilor Allen, let me just say to your couple of notes that net was donated, but the city would not install, and a lawnmower valued at $15,000 was going to be donated with restriction that it be used at the soccer complex only. I'm not aware of those, but I do intend to look into and find out about those things. Typically, if someone's trying to do something like that and they are getting a response from staff that they think should be smarter and they're not getting it, it would normally come to my attention and I can get involved in that. And unfortunately, these items did not come to my attention, and I'm interested in what was asked of us in terms of the net being installed after being donated. I'm interested in why we would turn down a mower valued at $15,000 that could be used at the soccer complex. So that gets my attention, and I want you to know and others to know that I intend to find out what happened there.
Well, I appreciate that, and my intention wasn't to embarrass you. My intention, when I started calling the league presidents and Mr. Bryan and Scott Stacy as the soccer president, he referred me to Mr. Miles that was here today. But that information came out in those discussions about the fees and why would the city want to do this and that kind of thing when we're doing these things. So that's how it came up. Certainly, if I'd have known about it beforehand, when it was actually offered on both occasions, the net and the lawnmower, I would have called you and
Sure.
said, we need to look in this a little closer because it could save us some significant funding. But I do know that the soccer complex, I think Mr. Mills covered it, they donated, I think, $10,000 on renovating the restrooms there at the complex.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been a good partnership. It's just, you can only get so much out of things like that. And I think it's just an overreach on the council's part. Somebody mentioned that this was similar to the Boston Tea Party. There was such an uproar, everybody pulled back. And we all know that have worked in government any length of time, when you start a fee, it never goes away. It only increases. And it really concerns me that we're even discussing this again. But anyway, I appreciate you looking into that, and I'd love to hear what you find out.
Sure.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, with that, first on my agenda, I'm requesting approval to grant an easement for use, access, and construction to Georgia Power Company.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the Georgia Power easement at 3808 Rosemont Drive. Seeing no discussion, I believe you are queued for electronic voting. And it passes.
I've got a request to enter into a rural fire defense cooperative lease agreement and MOU, which will allow the City of Columbus to be able to obtain specialized brush and wildland firefighting equipment.
We've got a motion and second for approval related to the Rural Fire Defense Cooperative Lease Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding. Is there any discussion related to this? Seeing none, I believe you are queued for voting. And it looks like we need one more. There we go. And it does pass.
Got a street acceptance.
We've got a motion and a second for the street acceptance on Thresh Drive, Nahatch Drive, or Court, and that portion of Wren Creek Drive located in Section 2 of Wrenwood. It appears there's no discussion, and you are queued for electronic voting. It passes.
Got a juvenile justice delinquency and prevention family drug court implementation grant at $600,000.
Got a motion and second for approval. There appears to be no discussion, and it is queued for electronic voting. Okay, that one passes, and we've got a motion from Councilor Davis to accept the FY17 Family Connection Grant. Is there a second? And there appears to be no discussion. It is queued for electronic voting. Yeah, passes.
Got another grant with no match required. It's in the amount of $975,000. It's Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration grant.
We've got a motion and second for approval of the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Grant. There appears to be no discussion, and it is queued for electronic voting. It does pass.
Got another grant with a 10% match requirement. It's in the amount of $396,753.
We've got a motion from Councilor Davis, a second for Councilor Huff to approve the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council grant. There appears to be no discussion. Please record your votes electronically. All right, and it does pass.
Madam Mayor, this is an add-on. It was discussed at the budget meeting, our last budget meeting. It's a resolution authorizing each sworn officer in the Columbus Police Department to receive a one-time bonus of $1,500 from those sworn officers on payroll, for those sworn officers on payroll as of January 1, 2016.
Got a motion and second for approval. We have discussion. Councilor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, as I recall, this was originally given to us as a $1,200 bonus, and it's now up to $1,500 because of additional salary savings. Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
That is correct.
Are there other departments, particularly in our public safety area, that would have salary savings that might also have a bonus of this type? It seems that we're, well, that's my question. Are there
Well,
others?
And just without looking, I would say no. This is possible because of the vacancy rate that we've had in the Columbus Police Department. We do not have that kind of vacancy rate in other public safety departments, such as the sheriff and such as the marshal's office. And so because of the CPD's vacancy rate, we're able to bring this to you, and the value of this is $641,000, and that's because of the vacancies that they've had.
So there may be, and Pam might be able to speak to this, what's a typical salary savings for another public safety? I mean, it wouldn't be to this magnitude that could fund even a $300,
There's just no way,
$200.
because they just don't have that kind of vacancy rate.
Yeah. Pam, give us a sense of the vacancy rate in other departments, particularly public safety.
The one that I can think of off the top of my head is the fire department, and they have a much lower vacancy rate, and their salary savings is around $300,000 so far this year, and some of that has been requested for the burn tower, additional work at the burn tower. So there has been some salary savings in the fire department. In the sheriff and the marshal, they do not have substantial vacancy rates at all, so I don't believe their salary savings would be anywhere close to even $100,000.
So usually when they have salary savings, they come forward and ask council
Make a
for
request.
capital or whatever, and in this instance, it was for a bonus.
That's correct.
And I think we have been we have very jealously guarded those salary savings in the past and have not necessarily spent them on things like this. My only concern, and I certainly am going to vote in favor of this, is that I do not want the employees in the other public safety departments to get the wrong idea, quite frankly, because the police department is the only one getting a bonus. And so I did want to have, one more time, explained where this money came from and why it is being used in this situation and not in the other departments.
And part of the discussion, too, for this particular department receiving a bonus of this type was because of the number of vacancies and the requirement on the existing officers to fill all those gaps for all those vacant positions as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, and we have the Mayor Pro Tem.
One of the things I was going to say, we have to also remember that in the sheriff's department, they receive gap pay, whereas in the police department, they don't.
That's true.
And that's a good point.
That's true. And that's about $1,200. We got that information last year, but it's about $1,200 on average for those who receive it. Okay. All right. It appears there's no further discussion on this item. I will cue it to vote. You may record your votes electronically. And it passes.
I've got a few purchases. The first is procurement card services, RFP. We're asking council to authorize the execution of an annual contract with Synovus, Columbus Bank and Trust for a credit card program for small dollar procurements under $1,000 and travel purposes.
Got a motion and second for approval. We have discussion by Councilor Davis.
We can go ahead and
Oh,
follow through,
okay.
Mayor, now.
All right. There being no further discussion, it is queued for voting. And it passes.
Mr. City Manager, on this matter here, pertaining to the procurement card, it just brings to my mind that I think there was a law passed this year, the state legislature. I'm not sure how it's going to affect this matter, but I believe it does pertain to these cards and certain employees or officials and how they're
Elected
able to use
officials.
these cards. I don't know how that's going to change the policies and procedures of our government, but I am concerned what I know on the surface. I don't know if you'll be coming back or that we'll have a discussion on this very subject, but I believe there was a law that was passed that pertains to this.
Well, I believe you're talking about the law as it relates to elected officials. I believe that's the one I'm familiar with, and has nothing to do with non-elected officials, but for certain elected officials, there was not initiated by this city or county, but from problems people were having in other counties. There was a legislation that I know the city attorney is aware of as it relates to elected officials, and certainly we're going to be guided by that legislation regarding those certain elected officials that, again, we had nothing to do with here in Muscogee County. But most of this, the use of procurement cards, come with non-elected officials.
Right. I do think you probably share my same concerns based on past history dealing with these cards, that we need to have the assurance that the policies and procedures are still somehow, I don't know how it's changing, but I need to understand it as well as the rest of the council.
Well, and we can send you something, but the deputy city manager is telling me that back in December, we updated the policies and council did take a vote on that. So,
Pam, why don't you just update us? It's hard to remember with all
We
that
did
comes through
bring the
here.
policies to council in December, and those were updated, and I'll be happy to provide just a summary information for council.
Yeah, why don't you put it in our packs or whatever memo it was, if there was something, just get it to everybody to update us. But the law did change. I think there was some pretty gross abuse in some of these communities, and so the state legislature passed a law and we made some decisions.
yeah. So we'll get something to you, Counselor, to all of you. Okay.
right.
With that, moving on to B on the purchase agenda.
Did we take a vote on A?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Internet Services RFP. We're asking council to authorize the execution of an annual contract with WOW.
Got a motion and a second for approval. It appears there's no discussion. Wait, hold on a second. It's now queued to vote. One more, I think. Yeah, there we go. It passes.
And C would be Pool Chemicals RFP. It's for,
Got a motion and second for approval. It appears there's no discussion. It's queued for voting. Thank you. It does pass.
and the last purchase item is Building Ethernet wiring services. IT often need assistance in wiring to the various city buildings on an as-needed basis.
Motion and second for approval. There is no discussion, and it's queued for voting.
And I've got one very brief update on Claflin, the Claflin building. You know that we signed an agreement with the Friends of Claflin. We have them on a timeline to bring that building up to standard. They presented to us that it would cost some $10 million to get that done. We entered an agreement with them for a 3-year period. I want to give you periodic updates so that you know how they are progressing within that window of time, how they're fundraising within that window of time, so that we can stay on track and on course as it relates to Claflin. And so Laura McCoo Johnson is here, and she's going to give a brief update on Claflin.
Good morning.
And let me just say, I believe the Friends of Claflin were notified. They were invited to be here because we want to always give them an opportunity to speak when we provide these updates. And so
I
with
did
that-
hear from Reverend Jesse a few minutes ago. They had a public hearing this morning, or a press release. I'm not sure if he was going to try to attend or not,
Okay,
but
thank you.
I did hear from him a few minutes ago. I'm going to go back and just go over the history of what's occurred so far. In January 2013, council accepted Claflin from the school board. The property does have a deed restriction that says it must be used for educational purposes only, and the city had an option to allow the property to revert back to the federal government. At that time, council agreed to allow the city staff 12 months to come up with a plan, and originally it was going to be used as a homeless resource center. Then in August 2013, an RFP was advertised, but there was no submittals, so that the RFP was extended. In May of 2014, council approved retaining ownership for an additional 6 months to determine a plan. The proposal was submitted by the Friends of Historic Claflin in November 2014, and then in February 2015, council approved leasing the building to Friends of Historic Claflin. So the original timeline that was presented to council back then was that in June, by November 24th, they would have developed the RFP, developed a sustainability plan, submitted an application to the Historic Register, form a nonprofit, and establish a board. All of those items have been completed. Then by January 2015, they were to complete the RFP process, apply for a 501c3, and kick off a PR campaign. That also has been completed. The phase 2 of the development, by August 2015, they were to identify and apply for restoration funds and conduct a fundraising campaign. They're currently in the process of doing phase 2 as we speak. Phase 3, by February 2016, stabilization and demolition was to occur, and they were to continue fundraising. They have not started doing any stabilization or demolition on the building, but they are continuing to do fundraising. As of March 2016 is when they were supposed to start the facility restoration, which has not occurred yet. Also, by 2018, they were to have the facility prepared for tenants and for occupation, which was to start in April 2017, but as you can see, they have not started the facility restoration at this time, so I'm not sure if they'll meet the deadline of April 17 to start preparing the facility. And then by September of 2018, that's when they were to start preparing for the grand opening. Wanted to go back and give some pictures of what Claflin currently looks like. This is pictures that were taken back in December when we presented to council, but nothing has been done since then, so this is still the current state of the building. So since we came and updated you on December 8th, the following items have occurred. On December 29th, 2015, we entered into a lease agreement with the Friends of Historic Claflin. The lease has a 10-year term with an option for 2 additional 5-year terms if in full compliance with lease terms, so it's a 20-year total lease. Per the lease requirements, the Claflin has received liability insurance on the building for an annual fee of $33.90 per year, and they pay it in quarterly payments. They've paid the first 2 premiums, and their next installment's due August 2016. January 2016, we came to council to get approval for submitting an application to the Georgia State Historic Preservation Division for $21,000 for environmental testing at the site. Friends of Historic Claflin put the application together. The city did submit the application on time, but the project was not selected for funding. Since then, they've opened a PayPal account and a crowdfunding campaign, which is online fundraising, to begin some fundraising since that time. And they also held their first public meeting on February 3rd, which I believe they have a public meeting every month. They've developed partnerships with the East Highland Neighborhood Improvement Association and Project Rebound. I was informed after this presentation was put together that the East Highland Neighborhood Improvement Association is no longer functioning. They are going to try to kick it back off in June, but as of right now, it's not a functioning agency. They also created a church works committee, and then they had Greater Shady Grove Baptist Church held a Friends of Historic Claflin Sunday on May 22nd, 2016. Also, board members attended a capital fundraising campaign training in Atlanta on March 16th, and they are planning to kick off their first capital fundraising campaign. Some of the Friends of Historic Claflin board appeared on the Dee Armstrong Show to promote their PR campaign Reach. They also submitted a second grant application requesting $150,000 from AFLAC for their Peers program on April 1st. And Claflin School was recently highlighted in the May's edition of the Georgia Magazine under Places in Peril. As far as construction is concerned, they did have a walkthrough by general contractors, and they selected Bass & Cook Company as their construction manager for the project. I did some research on Bass & Cook, and they're a development agency out of Atlanta. On March 1st, the construction committee met with Bass & Cook to outline pre-development plans. And as I was saying earlier, GEC is doing the Phase 1 testing today, and they had a kickoff on that this morning. And they're doing that in kind, the Phase 1 testing. So far, as of today, they have $3,004.81 in the bank, and they are expecting an additional $4,000 in pledges. And that's all I have as an update. Any questions?
And I see that Reverend Jesse is here, and I don't know if he wants to make any comments, but we'll certainly answer any questions from council.
Okay, we have Councilor Davis.
City Manager, I just have two. Who is maintaining the property right now? And based on the photos we have, I thought there was supposed to be, the building was supposed to be secured as well.
Okay. Well, let's let.
It is a responsibility of Friends of Historic Claflin per the lease agreement to maintain and secure the building.
And so let us get council questions first before you.
I got it.
Okay, Mayor, I don't know if there are any others.
No others at this time.
Okay, Reverend Jesse, if you'd like to make any comments.
Good morning. We had just left Claflin this morning. This morning we went through the school with the police department to make sure there were no unauthorized tenants there. And we do still have some that are there. So we cleared out the building. Harvey Lumber has donated some material that we can re-secure the building, so we'll be getting that done today. There were some areas that have been vandalized, taken down, some of the boards and everything, but we have the material to re-secure it, and we wanted to make sure that during this process of removing the tenants, and I'm going to be meeting with one of the persons who's been staying over there this afternoon to help him get into a safe place, and we will close it up where nobody will be able to get in it. We have started the process of restoration in Phase 1 testing. It's done now. We should get the results from it in a couple of weeks, and we'll be able to start Phase 2 of the testing, and that is identifying the asbestos and the lead paint and all the other toxins. We have permission already to clean the school up. We can go in and remove all of the debris that's in there, and we'll be organizing that in the next couple of weeks to get the school cleaned up. We are still in the process of applying for grants. We have a couple that we are in the process of applying for. We applied for 2 already. Didn't get them, but we have some that the Georgia Department of Natural Resources has said they're going to be working closely with us so that we can do that. We have been starting we're in the process of starting a capital fundraising campaign, and in a couple of months we'll be able to kick that off. So before the end of this year, we are still planning to have cleaned up the school. We'll be able to know what we need to do the demolition work, and we want to get that done. We want to ask the community and even our leaders, if you would contribute to this phase of what we are doing, we would appreciate it. And we are in the process of still raising the funds. We're working with Bass & Cook and with 2WR, GEC now, and we're just moving forward doing what we need to do this year so that we can put a roof on the school. So.
All right, we have Mayor Pro Tem.
Reverend Jesse, what if somebody wanted to commit to paying $100 a month? What would they do?
Say that again, ma'am.
If somebody wanted to commit to paying $100 a month?
Yes, ma'am. We would appreciate that. I have committed to making a monthly donation. We have a crowdfunding campaign that you can go online and donate. We have PayPal, www.friendsofclaflin.com. We have all the information as far as our fundraising is concerned. Of course, we are 501c3. And when we started this, we wanted to make this a community project. This past Sunday, the Greater Shady Grove Missionary Baptist Church had a Claflin Day, and we were able to raise around $500 just in gifts through that. So we will be going to our churches and other community organizations. We partner with the East Highland Neighborhood Improvement Association, the Greater Chamber of Commerce, a number of other organizations who have looked at what we want to do with the school and are supporting us. And soon, hopefully, we will have a couple of people who will start working full-time on Claflin. I should be the first, and that's why we need folk to give today, and we can go to work. I see a lot that I could be doing that I'm not able to because I got to work, I got to pay my bills. So, but as soon as we have a work agreement with the Friends of Claflin now that we can start working, and we're just in the process of preserving this school. And I guarantee you this would be something that this city would be very proud of once we finish the restoration process. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. That's
Thank
all.
you. Yes. And Madam Mayor, just an announcement, and then this will conclude my agenda. Just a public meeting announcement. There's a proposed permanent closure of Pope Road at Railroad Crossing. And I know that I had the engineering director to talk to Councilor Allen to make him aware of a public meeting just to go and get the reaction from, I think there may be 3 households on Pope Road. But the meeting will be held on May 26, 2016 at Salmon Road Recreation Center, 6484 Salmon Road. Again, May 26 from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. May 26, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Salmon Road Recreation Center. And it's a public meeting for the proposed permanent closure of Pope Road at Railroad Crossing. And so when we have these public meetings for things such as this, they are meetings to get the reading from the citizens. We're not going in trying to force necessarily anything on them. We want them to look at what we're proposing and trying to do and agree to it. So we invite whoever's interested to come out to this meeting on May 26, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Summer Road Rec Center. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my agenda.
All right. Thank you. And we'll now turn it over to the Clerk of Council, Ms. Washington.
Madam Mayor and members of council, on the clerk's agenda, items 1 through 4 for the council's information. Item 1 is a memorandum from me regarding the Deferred Compensation Board. Council needs to nominate someone for this volunteer position. 2 and 3.
Wait, hold on a second. We got the Mayor Pro Tem.
Nominate them.
Oh, you can go ahead and do it now.
I want to nominate Mr. Tyler Townsend.
Okay. All righty. We'll bring this back for his confirmation. Then items 5, 6, and 7, 8 are resolutions to excuse counselors from.
We've got a motion and second for approval. All those in favor, please state aye.
And also, apologize, item 5, which has already been approved, but this will be changing our regular council meeting schedule. We will be having a regular session on June 7th at 5:30 p.m. and our regular June 14th meeting, and then a special call meeting on June the 21st, and our June 28th meeting will be canceled. Item 9 is a letter.
Hold on a second. We've got Counselor Thomas.
I want to just ask a question. On the 7th and the 21st, will those be regular business meetings? We have a regular
That's my
agendas
understanding,
and
is
that
they're
sort of thing?
all business meetings. The proclamation session is converted to a business meeting / proclamation session, so the proclamations will occur first, and then that will be followed by the business meeting.
That is correct.
And the hearings for the budget, the taxpayer bill of rights, okay.
Yes.
And then the 14th is a regular meeting, and the 21st will be the 28th meeting moved to the 21st? Is that basically what that is?
Right, well,
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay?
and item number 9 is a letter of resignation from Mr. Ed James resigning from the Historic and Architectural Review Board. Can I have a motion to receive it?
We've got a motion that it be received with regrets. Is there a second? All those in favor, please state aye.
Minutes of various boards can be received.
We've got a motion and second that the minutes be received. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our board appointments, on the Board of Family and Children Services, Ms. Maddie Wright has resigned. We'll need a replacement for her seat. Okay. And then on our Civic Center Advisory Board,
Let me ask a question. Is Jennifer Melvin also on the Personnel Review Board?
I
No,
believe
okay.
she's
I
off
just knew that
now.
name was familiar, so, okay.
Civic Center Advisory Board, Counselor Barnes is working on a replacement for District 1, as well as Counselor Woodson for District 7 and District 9. Also, Counselor Thomas is working. On our Columbus Golf Course Authority, Counselor Barnes is nominating Miss Stephanie Leor for Miss Rudine Nelson's seat. Counselor Davis had previously nominated Mr. Ricky Wright, and we will bring this back at our next meeting for a vote. On our Circle Commission, Mr. Pedro Augusto, his seat has been declared vacant. We need a replacement for this seat. On a Community Development Advisory Council, Counselor Davis, Mr. Jack Hayes is not eligible. We'll need a replacement for that seat. As well as for District 8, Mr. Jackie Shahid does not want to serve again, as well as Colin Martin, who represents District 9. On a Convention and Visitors Board, the mayor is renominating Ms. Donna Hicks, as well as Mr. Paul Pierce to succeed themselves.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
Also, she's nominating Ms. Kendra Wright to succeed Ms. Felicia Hamilton.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And on our Deferred Comp Board, Mayor Pro Tem has nominated Mr. Townsend. We'll bring that back for confirmation at our next meeting. And on our Recreation Advisory Board, Counselor Woodson is working on a replacement for Ms. Tracy Belk. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. That concludes our agenda. We do have a motion for, a request from the city attorney for a short executive session regarding litigation. We've got a motion and a second for executive session. All those in favor, please state aye. Great, thank you. Please clear the chambers. Firing it up. All right, we have just exited an executive session on litigation. No votes were taken. This concludes our business agenda. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, that's a motion and second. All those in favor, please state aye. All right, we are adjourned, and we're going to reconvene in just a bit with our budget session. See you in a little bit.